This is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 22. A sound of battle is in the land, and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? I want to say all praise Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushua, Bahashem Kakodash. Double honors to the apostles and the elders, a great millstone, and all the Akim laboring in the work, pushing out this truth. Alright, this lesson is pretty much revolving around a short video that I'm going to play. You got this guy just pretty much highlighting, the war machine that is America, which is Babylon the Great. So I'm going to play the video. Of course, I'm going to filter the video through the scriptures, and that'll pretty much be the lesson. Alright, so without any further ado, let's go to the video. Alright, and the name of the video is How Many Wars is America Fighting? It's more than you think. Now I'm gonna let the video play out, but in the first maybe minute or so, I'm gonna stop it because he's going to mention something that I want to highlight, so there's no confusion or anything. But anyway, we'll just let it play.
How many wars is the United States fighting right now? Well, one answer is 0. Under the Constitution, Congress must declare war, and the last countries Congress declared war on were Bulgaria, Romania, and Hungary, members of the Axis powers. That was in 1942. That's right.
Alright, so that's where I'm going to stop it at first. Now, he said that America isn't officially, fighting any wars, or hasn't declared war, to be more specific, since 1942. Now, that was during World War II. And he mentioned the Axis powers, Hungary, Austria, and Germany. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to pull up an article pretty much going over the wars that America has declared war in, just so you have a better understanding of how that works. Now, it's not really an article. It's kind of breaking down the legislative branch, more so the House of Representatives, and how they go about declaring war, and how it kind of changed after World War II. So let's check this out. Alright, this is power to declare war. I'm not going to read every single thing, but it is good to read so you have an understanding of what's going on, how these laws affect you, what's the bigger picture. So when you hear scriptures, or when you hear somebody bring out something, you have some type of idea of what's being said and what it's all about. So, alright, so here we go. Power to declare war. The Congress shall have power to provide for common defense and general welfare of the United States. This is according to the U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section A, Clause 1. Alright, so let's get into it. The Congress shall have power to declare war, grant letters of marque and reprisal, and make rules conquering captures on land and water, to raise and support armies, but no appropriation of money to that use shall be for a longer term than 2 years. And it's a reason why I'm reading all this. It'll help you have an understanding of what America actually does. Alright, so to provide and maintain a navy, to make rules for the government and regulation of the land and naval forces, to provide for calling forth the militia to execute the laws of the Union, suppress insurrections, and repel invasions, to provide for organizing, arming, and disciplining the militia, and for governing such part of them as may be employed in the service of the United States, reserving to the United States respectively the appointment of the officers and the authority of training the militia according to the discipline prescribed by Congress. Again, this is U.S. Constitution, Article 1, Section 8, Clauses 11 through 16. And it's just a few things to point in there. Insurrection stands out. Second Esdras chapter 15 tells you there should be a great insurrection among the people, and they won't regard their princes or their kings, which means at some point fast approaching, because you can see how things are playing out around the world, but definitely here in America, Babylon the Great, is such a great division. You got the max versus the unmaxed. You got the mask on, mask off. You got Republicans versus Democrats. You got, this whole liberal agenda that's being pushed with homosexuality and women's rights versus, and I'm saying it this way because it's not necessarily conservative versus liberals, but this whole liberal agenda. Then you got the people who are so-called woke, that are kind of seeing through the bullshit, seeing through the agendas, seeing through the lies of the government, seeing the way that that everything is being pushed. You got the battle against men versus women. You got black and white. You got race. So you got all these divisions and subdivisions within the divisions. And at some point, it's going to lead to a civil war. It's going to lead to class wars, race wars. And the scriptures told us this is going to happen. And you got people who are not even in the truth that are, pretty much saying the same thing. Those who have a greater perspective on what's going on can clearly see what's happening. Point being, Yahushua stated that a kingdom divided amongst itself should not stand. On a macro level, that's dealing with Esau versus Esau, because at the end of the day, it's Esau who's going to take Salakia. At the end of the day, Yahweh by Hashem Yahushua is going to use Esau to take down Esau, among with some of the other nations, but even within themselves. But the point about the insurrection, when all hell breaks loose, you're gonna see that implementation of martial law, and this is one of the provisions that they have in their law in case something like that happens. That's why I made sure to make point of highlighting that, to suppress insurrections. All right, so let's get into the origins, and then I'm gonna get into some. We'll read it. All right, so this is the origins. Like many powers articulated in the U.S. Constitution, Congress's authority to declare war was revolutionary in its design and a clear break from the past when a handful of European monarchs controlled the continent's affairs. Now that's heavy, because when you go to in the Maccabees, I can't remember exactly what chapter right offhand. This goes back to the Greeks. They changed, and this is one of the things that kind of propelled these European nations in our modern ages, America, Babylon the Great, so far ahead of the other countries, of the other developing countries, was their development of this democratic checks and balances type system. Because as it mentioned, it took the power out of a handful of European monarchs. So what Esau Edom did, beginning with the Greeks, was they changed the power structure from a monarchy, which is a monarch, is pretty much a king, and how it will work. The king is in rule, and when he dies, his son or one of his sons will be the next heir up. And one of the biggest issues with that is you might have a great king. He might be smart, he might be intelligent, might be wise, might care about the people. He might be courageous, goes to war. Then his son might be, an asshole. He might be greedy. He might be afraid, and and at some point could lead that country or that nation into a collapse, so to speak. and it could last for 40 years, 50 years, just depending on how long, that king or monarch was in rulership. So when these Edomites came up with this system, and that's part of their illumination, part of that light that was given to them. They came up with this system of checks and balances and not having somebody in office too long, that way, and giving the people the illusion that they have a choice in the matter. And again, that way, if somebody isn't good for the so-called kingdom, they won't be there long. The things that they do to impact the kingdom as a whole are not as long lasting had there been a monarch. So that's just something to keep in mind. And like I said, Maccabees, I can't remember what verse, I know it's the first Maccabees, it actually highlights how they changed that. These scriptures are pretty deep, but that's not the point. I just wanted to highlight that out. So I'm going to read that again and continue on down. Like many powers articulated in the U.S. Constitution, Congress's authority to declare war was revolutionary in its design and a clear break from the past when a handful of European monarchs controlled the continent's affairs. I'm going to make one more point and I'm going to go to the next paragraph. People forget that these so-called white people that's in America, they are Europeans. Those are Edomites. That's where they come from. Just that's something you have to understand. They're all the same people. You got different tribes among them, but they're all the same. All right, so the second paragraph. The framers of the Constitution, reluctant to concentrate too much influence in the hands of too few, denied the office of the president the authority to go to war unilaterally. If America was going to survive as a republic, they reasoned, declarations of war required careful debate in open forums among the public's representatives. The provision of the Constitution giving the war-making powers to Congress was dictated, as I understand it, by the following reasons. A young first-term congressman named Abraham Lincoln wrote in 1848, during America's war with Mexico, kings had always been involving and impoverishing their people in wars, pretending generally, if not always, that the good of the people was the object. This, our constitutional convention understood to be the most oppressive of all kingly oppressions, and they resolved to the same frame the Constitution that no man should hold the power of bringing this oppression upon us. Now, it's very ironic how that was supposedly the frame of thought when constructing the Constitution and deciding how the power to declare war was going to be determined or enacted. When you look at America today, and that's what the guy in this video is going to highlight, not necessarily the Constitution, but just all the wars. So that was pretty much the origins of it. Like I said, I don't want to read everything, so I'm gonna go down to the list of wars. I mean, you should come down here and read the whole thing. I've read it already, but I don't want to make the video too long, and I just want to get the main point. Now, the whole reason I even came here was to highlight the number of wars, because he mentioned that America declared war against Austria, Hungary, and Germany, and that was after during World War II. But America has actually declared war before that. So let's just get some history on that. All right, so this is declarations of war and authorization for the use of military force. And I might as well mention this right now. That's what America functions under right now. So they don't necessarily declare war. What they do is they get an authorization for authorization for use of military force, and that's how they or I guess legally according to the Constitution, because they say they have to do everything according to the Constitution. That's how they're legally able to engage in all these proxy wars or whatever you want to call them across the world. But let's read it. I think they might explain it a little bit in here. All right, so since 1789, Congress has declared war 11 times, and that's what I wanted to highlight mainly. That America has officially declared war a few more times than the guy mentioned. So since 1789, Congress has declared war 11 times against 10 countries, because it was Germany twice, during 5 separate conflicts. Great Britain, this is during the War of 1812 or the War of 1812. Mexico, 1846, the war with Mexico. Spain, 1898, the Spanish-American War, also known as the War of 1898. Germany in 1917, World War I. Austria/Hungary, 1917, World War I. Japan, 1941, World War II. And Germany again in 1941, World War II. Italy, 1941, World War II. Bulgaria, 1942, World War II. Hungary, 1942, World War II. And Romania, 1942, World War II. Alright. In each of these 11 instances, the president appealed to Congress for authorization either in person before a joint session or in a written request. Far more common, especially in the modern era, have been congressional authorizations for the use of military force. And that's, again, this is what America pretty much acts under now versus officially declaring war through Congress. Historically, AUMFs have been much narrower in scope and much more limited than formal declarations of war, such as when Congress gave the president clearance to protect American ships against French aggression in 1789 and against Tripoli's navy in 1802. After World War II, however, AUMFs became much broader, often granting presidents sweeping authority to engage America's military around the world. Take, for example, the Tonkin Gulf Resolution in 1964. As communist forces in Vietnam took increasingly militaristic actions against U.S. forces, Congress authorized the president in sweeping but vague language to promote the maintenance of international peace and security in Southeast Asia. In fact, despite engaging in conflicts in places like Vietnam and Iraq over the last 70 years, Congress has not declared war since 1942. So that's what the guy was referring to. So since that time, America has not declared war, but they act under the authorization for use of military force. Rather, the individual congressional AUMFs have been interpreted as fully empowering the president to prosecute the wars. According to law professors Curtis A. Bradley and Jack L. Goldsmith, although the concept of the AUMF has existed since the start of the Republic, the specific use of the terms became commonplace in the 1990s during the Gulf War. Alright, so that's really all I'm going to read on that, and we'll just get back to the video. Here's a visual description, or a visual list of the wars that America has, officially declared war against. Alright, so let's get back to the video. Slovakia.
The United States has not declared war on any country since 1942. 8 decades, 0 wars. America must be one of the most peaceful countries on earth. But as you know, that's not the reality. America is still fighting wars around the world that just doesn't want to call them wars. In recent years, the United States has been fighting in Afghanistan, Iraq, Libya, Pakistan, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. 7 different countries, and those are just the ones the Pentagon officially acknowledges. The actual scope of American war making is wider. Researchers at Brown University recently counted 14 countries in which U.S. troops were engaged in combat to fight terrorism. And then there are the forces of the United States stationed indefinitely overseas as part of a massive network of allies and partners. Take the Middle East. U.S. troops number around 13,000 in Kuwait, another 13,000 in Qatar, 7,000 in Bahrain, around 78,000 remain in Japan and South Korea, and that's not even getting to Germany, Djibouti, Cuba, Romania, and so on. In all, America stations about 200,000 service members overseas because it has committed them to protect by force about 1/3 of all the countries in the world.
Alright, so like the guy said, 1/3 of the countries in the world. Now I want to pause it right there because there's another article I want to get. So lock in. Alright. He named a few of those countries. I don't think I'm going to read all of this article. It's pretty self-explanatory. But it says, this map, I don't think this was in 2019. This map shows where in the world the U.S. military is combating terrorism. The infographic reveals for the first time that the U.S. is now operating in 40% of the world's nations. 40% of the world's nations. So before I go any further, let me go back and read Jeremiah 50 again so it can sink in. This is Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 22. A sound of battle is in the land and of great destruction. How is the hammer of the whole earth cut asunder and broken? How is Babylon become a desolation among the nations? And that's what's going to happen. It's going to be broken asunder. It's going to be a desolation among the nations. But as it stands, this is the hammer of the whole earth. This is who these scriptures are referring to. You know, America is Babylon the Great. Those other European countries, yeah, they're Edomites and they're going to be destroyed as well, but they're not going to be utterly destroyed. But this place is going to be utterly destroyed because it's prophesied to happen so. And there's no mistaking who the hammer of the earth is and has been. You know, so I just wanted to highlight that. Let's go back to this article and really I just want to show the map, read the key. So this zoom on this. So it says 80 total affected countries engaged through, and then it's going to break it down what, you know, how they're actually engaged. 40 U.S. military bases, 65 counter-terrorism training, 26 U.S. military exercises, 14 U.S. troops in combat, and it's not number of people, this is places. 7 air and drone strikes. And when we go to the key, it kind of breaks it down a little further. U.S. counterterrorism activity from 2017 to 2018. So anywhere where there's a star with a circle around it represents a place where the U.S. military base, or what they call lily pads. This country hosted one or more U.S. military bases or similar military outposts involved in counterterrorism activity. The next one, training assistance. The U.S. military and our State Department trained or assisted this country's security forces in counterterrorism. The next one, U.S. military exercises. This country hosted U.S. military exercises intended to deter militants, train local forces, and build strategic partnerships to combat terrorism. The next one, combat. U.S. service members were involved in combat and or took direct action on the ground here against militants and in cooperation with this country. Next one, air and defense, air and drone strikes. The U.S. operated direct air and drone strikes against terrorist targets in this country. So zoom out and we'll just take a look at the map. And look up here in the right corner. You see there's Brazil in Central America. Down here in Australia, you know, all these islands over in, you know, like the Philippines. I forgot that area has a name. All over, you know, so-called the continent of Africa, all over Europe, all in the Middle East. This is the hammer of the earth, and this is what that guy's referring to. 3%, 40% right here. All right, so let's go back to the video. I'm gonna rewind it back a little bit.
Them to protect by force about 1/3 of all the countries in the world. Where does that leave the other 2/3, home to most of humanity? The answer is on the receiving end. Over the last 20 years, the United States has dropped an average of 46 bombs and missiles on other countries each day. In 2016, Barack Obama's last year in office, the United States dropped upwards of 26,000 bombs on 7 countries. But not to worry, America's coercive power is not supposed to be for war. It's for military-led operations, police actions, or humanitarian interventions. Bombings or surgical strikes.
I'm gonna highlight something. It ain't even that big a deal, but I want you to pay attention. This is Esau. You see him with his red skin? He got another image. I know it's a cartoon. He's gonna do another image, show another image, and that's gonna be the true representation of when we tell you who the devil is. Let me go back because I ain't wanna.
Police actions or humanitarian interventions, bombings or surgical strikes. And of course, there's the inevitable collateral damage, a term the U.S. military created during the Vietnam War as a euphemism for dead, innocent people. At least America used to have a Department of War, calling it what it was. But in 1949, the Department of Defense was born, and the American military began to pioneer a language of sterile obfuscation to describe the brutal realities of war. The problem goes well beyond.
That's the image right there. This is obviously, you know, Captain America depicted as the devil. Now, why can't you understand that the scriptures are describing this man as the devil? Just as this picture is describing this man as the devil, destroying the world, killing everybody, destroying the earth in more ways than one, even beyond war. This is the image. You have to let this sink in. So when we tell you that this man is the devil, is there a spiritual demon, Satan? Yes. He has a physical counterpart on the earth that acts out and brings about what you see happening in the earth today. And again, it ain't even that big a deal. It ain't even that deep. But just take a look at the image.
Language, of course. Over decades, America has perfected.
I'm gonna rewind it back a little bit, not to play the image because I cut it. I paused it so you can see those images, and I didn't want to break your concentration. So let me just play it back before that, and then let it play on through. And then after the video is done, I'm gonna go back and I got some time marks that I highlighted that I wanted to go back and review or look at.
Police actions or humanitarian interventions, bombings or surgical strikes. And of course, there's the inevitable collateral damage, a term the U.S. military created during the Vietnam War as a euphemism for dead, innocent people. At least America used to have a Department of War, calling it what it was. But in 1949, the Department of Defense was born, and the American military began to pioneer a language of sterile obfuscation to describe the brutal realities of war. The problem goes well beyond language, of course. Over decades, America has perfected the art of isolating itself from the wars it wages. On TV, wars play out like simple dramas, us versus them, with no blood and no casualties unless perhaps they're inflicted by the enemy. Americans rarely see images of combat. To judge from most broadcasts, war involves firing missiles into the sky and admiring the beauty of our weapons, to quote one anchor. And the people America sends to war, they're increasingly separated from the rest of society. Since the draft ended in the 1970s, the government moved to an all-volunteer force, and it relies as much as possible on technology like drones that keep American casualties to a minimum. So the wars America conducts take place largely outside of public view. It was only when 4 U.S. soldiers were killed in Niger in 2017 that many Americans learned we had troops there in the first place. Although the system perpetuates itself like a self-licking ice cream cone, U.S. leaders have a theory of the case. Military dominance, they say, is supposed to achieve peace through strength. This theory guided American leaders in the 1990s after the Soviet Union fell, leaving the United States with undisputed power. During the Cold War, the United States built an apparatus of military alliances and bases to contain Soviet communism. Once the Soviet enemy had collapsed, America had an opportunity to scale back its military footprint, invest the gains at home, and let other countries manage their own affairs. But instead of pulling back, planners in the Pentagon vowed to maintain a predominant military position so great as to prevent any potential rival from even aspiring to a larger role in their own regions. No one would dare to take their own initiative, not even U.S. allies, who would stay subordinate to the United States. The result? Of all the times the United States has used armed force since 1946, roughly 80% of those interventions have taken place after 1991. That's right, the United States has used force more frequently after the Cold War than during it, and it's not even close. Despite the promise of peace through strength, peace has not come. Quite the contrary. Armed supremacy, assumed to ensure peace, has produced endless war. In the 1990s, the United States began to station tens of thousands of soldiers in the Middle East. Suddenly, it found a cavalcade of enemies in the region who resisted American aims. Take Afghanistan. After 9/11, the United States did not merely go after the terrorists responsible for the attack and punish their sponsors. Instead, America tried to transform Afghanistan. It set out to build a brand new Western-style centralized state, applying what was supposed to be overwhelming strength to impose peace. It soon became clear that, in the words of the Lieutenant General, who for 6 years was the White House's chief advisor on the war, and I quote, "We didn't know what we were doing." The United States tried to build Afghan security forces, only to find they couldn't do the job. The United States tried to build a thriving market economy, only to see the opium trade become the only thriving part of the Afghan economy. The United States tried to build a liberal democracy, but in doing so empowered warlords and fueled corruption. So the Taliban mounted an insurgency and made steady gains. Now it controls the country and enjoys its strongest position since the war began in 2001. For Americans, war has come to appear normal, inescapable, eternal. It has no declared beginning and no end in sight. That's what makes them endless wars, not just that they are long, but also that they lack a worthy and achievable purpose. The United States has trapped itself. Pursuing military dominance has generated unnecessary enemies. These enemies, in turn, have made dominance costlier and more dangerous. That's why year after year, the United States seems to grow ever more threatened and ever less safe, according to the very leaders responsible for that result. It's as though the most powerful nation on earth has no control over its conduct, no choice, but to keep spending more on the military than the next 11 countries combined. As Americans struggle to address urgent needs at home, their government has committed them to the endless defense of places across the world, places we often make more dangerous. Instead of strengthening ourselves and helping to build a world safe for diversity, we've chosen to build an empire or something all too close. And if we continue the quest for dominance, the consequences will get even worse, and we will all be weaker for it. I'm Stephen Worth. I'm Director of Grand Strategy at the Quincy Institute for the Gravel Institute.
All right, you heard it. Now he said, what he said, they're building an empire or something like it. Yeah, it's something like the revised Roman Empire. It's something like the Roman Empire, which would be the revised Roman Empire. And ultimately part of the beast, which is NATO and the EU. America is part of NATO. Alright, so I want to go back and it was some things he mentioned along through the video, and I want to get some verses to bring some of this stuff out. So let's go back to the video, and I'm gonna go here. It's about the 2-minute mark.
Each day. In 2016, Barack...
Alright, yeah, so he's talking about the bombs being dropped. So let's listen to this little part right here, then I'm going to get some scriptures on that.
The United States has dropped an average of 46 bombs.
Let me go back a little more.
Where does that leave the other 2/3, home to most of humanity? The answer is on the receiving end. Over the last 20 years, the United States has dropped an average of 46 bombs and missiles on other countries each day. In 2016, Barack Obama's last year in office, the United States dropped upwards of 26,000 bombs on 7 countries. But not to worry, America's coercive power is not supposed to be for war.
Let's go to Revelations. Slovakia. And this is Revelation chapter 13, verse 11. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and he spake as a dragon. Those 2 horns represent the 2-party system. The lamb represents, they appear as if they're coming to help the people. They speak as a dragon through their laws and legislation, through their draconian laws. And just reading the frame of mind behind the the Constitution, and how they would go about to declare war, just shows just a little bit of their subtlety in their deep thought, as far as providing words. I didn't read this part in there, but there's a part in there where they stated, instead of go to war, they changed the word to declare war, or it was something to that effect. No, it wasn't that. It was that Congress had the power to declare war. Matter of fact, let me just get it right quick. What was it at? Give me a moment, because So, like, I'm just trying to read through it because I wanted to bring out how they said it. All right, so here it is right here. All right, on August 17, 1787, the state delegations agreed to strike, make, and insert declare by a vote of 8-1. Initially, it had been 7-2, but Connecticut switched its position, and in doing so, committed the war powers to Congress. The Constitution supposes that the history of all governments demonstrate, Madison wrote to Thomas Jefferson a few years later, that the executive is the branch of power most interested in war and most prone to it. It has accordingly with studied care vested the question of war in legislation. Let's go back up. All right, so I'm gonna read this then. Like I said, it's all for edification. This is constitutional framing. I had initially meant to skip it, but again, I read it, and it's good to bring this in. So I'm gonna read through it a little fast. Initially, delegates to the Constitutional Convention discussed America's war powers in general terms, briefly mentioning the common defense, security of liberty, and general welfare of the country's citizens. Then, in early June 1787, Charles Pinckney of South Carolina argued for a vigorous executive reopening the war powers issue, but to give the office war-making powers would turn the president into an elected monarch, Pinckney argued. Other delegates included John Rutledge of South Carolina, James Wilson of Pennsylvania, and James Madison of Virginia agreed, concluding that the powers of war and peace were best reserved for the national legislature. By August, the framers had yet to decide where to vest the country's war powers. So they were debating, do we give the actual war power to the president, or do we give it to the legislative branch? And the thought was, if you give it to the president, he's just going to be an elected monarch. But if you give it to the legislature, they may act or debate too long, in the time of need. So that was the pretty much the back and forth about it. Okay, so by August, the framers had yet to decide where to vest the country's war powers. Pierce Butler of South Carolina favored the executive office as best suited to make war, but there was a growing sense that such monumental responsibility belonged with the legislative branch. Not everyone was convinced that the House and Senate should share the power. However, and Pinckney felt that since the Senate already had jurisdiction over treaties, it alone should have discretion to decide war matters as well. Madison and Elbridge Gerry of Massachusetts saw a middle ground, for Gerry giving a single office the entirety of the country's war powers contradicted the goals of the Republic, and he and Madison proposed a quick edit, replacing make with declare, and that's what they did. Instead of make war, declare war. And the vague or ambiguity in that is, all right, the president can make war, but it's not officially declared unless the Congress does it. So that's what they do now. They don't have to declare war. They get around the Constitution their Constitution by using authorization for use of military force. So we might as well read this on down. So we'll stop that. Madison proposed a quick edit, replacing make with declare, so that the Constitution would read, Congress shall have power to declare war. The change codified congressional authority, but made the clause flexible enough to enable the president to defend the country during emergencies. The delegates worried that Congress would be out of session or would act too slowly if foreign forces invaded America. And that was really the point, so I ain't going to read all that. So you get how they use their laws and their legislation, their crafty wording to be able to do certain things. So let's go back to Revelation 13. Verse 11. Revelation 13 and 11. And I beheld another beast come up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, and spake as a dragon. And again, those two horns represent the two-party system, and that lamb is, the appearance that they try to help the people, or they're trying to, perform humanitarian aid in another country. But they speak as a dragon because their laws allow them to do, much more insidious acts upon the people. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. And that's referring to the Roman Empire. Like the guy said, America's becoming an empire or something like it. Well, yeah, it's the Roman Empire. It's the revised Roman Empire. And that first beast, the Roman Empire, the ancient Roman Empire, it gave this beast their dragon. And this beast, gets its power because it's in the same manner. Political, militarily, economic. It's just a conglomerate of these Edomite nations, with America being the head. The one that's riding the beast, so to speak. But that's how they got their power. They get their power from the ancient Roman Empire by doing the same thing. And that deadly wound was healed because it was revised. It was reborn during the Renaissance. And that's when the wound was healed. And he doth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. And that's what the point this is the verse I wanted to get in reference to the video when the guy was talking about all the bombs. So let's play that again. I kind of got sidetracked because I had to explain, how they changed the wording, to fit their to allow them flexibility to be able to, do certain things as far as war goes. So let's just go back to the video right quick.
"46 bombs and missiles on other countries each day. In 2016, Barack Obama's last year in office, the United States dropped upwards of 26,000 bombs on 7 countries. But not to worry, America's coercive power is not supposed to be for..."
Alright, so going back to Revelations, verse 13, Slakia, Revelations chapter 13, verse 13, "And he doeth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men." Now that's actually referring to them dropping those nuclear bombs. You had Fat Man and Little Boy. Those are the names of the atomic bombs that they dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The scriptures are describing who this person is. All the bombs. Now, it's not just them. It's not just America. You got all these other, so-called European countries. You got Russia in the Middle East too. Dropping bombs. They're all Edomites. They're taking peace from the earth. And matter of fact, with that, let's go to Revelation 6. This is Revelation chapter 6, verse 4. "And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Now, this is representative of Esau's time on the earth. You know, going all the way back to the Greeks. You know, those major Edomite empires started with the Greeks, the Romans, the Spanish, the French, Germania Minor, Germania Major, in Great Britain. Those are those 7 major Edomite nations where they represent the beast. You know, you throw Russia in there, but Russia is not part of the beast system. They're Edomites. And in Revelations 13, they're the feet of the beast that came out of the sea. And the feet of the bear represent the Russians, which represent them bringing the end to this beast. It represents the end, because the Most High is going to use Russia along with America's allies, which I'm going to point out in the scriptures. He's going to use them to destroy this place. And with this place being destroyed, it's going to be pretty much mutually assured destruction. But that horse, that red horse, is red because it represents Esau. It has a great sword because that was Esau's blessing. It was the sword. The sword is weapons. And that's what this man has. That's his greatest thing. His greatest accomplishment. Because with that sword, with his technology and weaponry, it's giving him control over the world. He can force other countries to his will, economically, geopolitically, you know, whatever agenda they want to push, because he has that sword. He can either, you know, provide military aid, or he can be a military force, or he can use his military aid for another country to put, what are those called? You know, not boycotts. I can't think of the word. You know, when they stop you from being able to receive certain things. I can't think of the word right now. But you get the picture. And specifically Esau in America, Babylon the Great, the actual hammer of the earth. But, you know, with their power, with their blessing, the sword, they've been able to take peace from the earth. That's why the world is so wicked. That's why the world is in mourning. Let's go to Genesis 5:24. Salakia. Chapter 25, verse 24. Alright, this is Genesis chapter 25, verse 24. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now, this is going back to Rebecca and Isaac. She had twins. She was older in age, and the Most High sent an angel, says he was going to bless her with some children. And they were fighting in her womb, and she pleaded to the Most High, you know, or asked the angel, like, why are they fighting? If you bless me with these kids, why are they fighting? And he said, there's going to be 2 manner of people, 2 different types of people, meaning they're going to have 2 different spirits. They got the spirit of the wicked, and we have the spirit of the righteous. You know, we repeat these. I mean, I could do another. I've done lessons on that. You know, Romans chapter 9. Just, you know, just throw one out there. But that's not the point. So that's just the backstory. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb, and the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And they called him red because he didn't have any pigment. You know, he was wasted away because he didn't have any pigment, and he came out different. Everybody else was melanated. He came out different. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. and Isaac was 80 years old when she bare him. Now, what's the symbolism of Jacob having Esau's heel when he came out? So Esau came out first, and as he was coming out, Jacob had the heel of him. What was the significance of that? Let's go to 2 Ezra chapter 6 and 9. You know, we repeat these things over and over again, but you know, one brother said it best: the scriptures don't change, and at some point you got to get it. All right, so this is 2 Ezra chapter 6, and we'll start at verse 8. No, we'll start at verse 7. Then answered I and said, what shall be the parting asunder of the times? Or when shall be the end of the first and the beginning of it that followeth? So this is Ezra asking the angel, what's going to be, you know, when is this age going to end, and when is the age of the kingdom going to come in? All the apostles were always asking that. The prophets always want to know what's going to be the sign. When is it going to come? So verse 8, and he said unto me, from Abraham unto Isaac, when Jacob and Esau were born of him, Jacob's hand held first the heel of Esau. Why? For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And it doesn't mean that this literal world is going to disappear. It means the end of an age. The end of this age of wickedness and war and hell, because this is hell. And the beginning of the kingdom of heaven started when Yahweh shall come back. That's what that represents. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth. And you heard what the man said in the video. There's no end to these wars. There'll never be an end until everything has ended. And the Most High has to end it. He has to end it by sending Yahushua back. Alright, so Esau is the end of the world. Esau red. Let's get the sword right quick. This is Genesis chapter 27. This is Genesis chapter 27, verse 38. And get straight to the point. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. Now, Esau's blessing was the sword. Backstory: Isaac was on his deathbed. He was getting ready to die. His wife knew that he was getting ready to bless him, but he was going to bless Esau because Isaac liked Esau better. He was a man of the field. He just liked him better. But the angel had already told Rebekah that the blessing was going to go to Jacob. So she had Jacob dress up. You can go read it. Had dress up and put, lamb wool or some type of fur, goat's fur on his arms, so he could appear to be hairy. And he had him fix Isaac some venison, and Isaac blessed him because that's the way the Most High set it up to be. He set it up that way. But Esau had already sold his birthright for the morsel of pottage and lentils. So that's the backstory. That's how he got the blessing of the sword. And for a time he was under dominion of Jacob, during King David. But after that, after the kingdom fell, that's when Esau got from under our rule, and eventually, came Greeks. When I say took over, moved into those lands, took over those lands. Romans, and to what you see today. all through his blessing the sword. And his dwelling is the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven. He got all the good places. And this is verse 14. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. And that's a perpetual hatred. Ezekiel 35. That hatred has never gone away. That's why they hate you so much. And when I'm saying you, mean, you Jakes, you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans who make up the 12 tribes of Israel. That's why they hate you so much. And again, that's the sword that he was given. Weaponry. And it was a blessing from the Most High, because the Most High, he puts in the thoughts of man to create these weapons, to create the things that they create. That's why you have to glorify the Most High in all things. Matter of fact, Isaiah 54. This is Isaiah chapter 54, verse 16. Listen. Behold, I created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire. What is a smith? You got a silversmith, you got a swordsmith. A smith is just a person that makes an instrument, whatever that instrument is. Your modern day smiths would be your scientists, nuclear scientists, engineers, aerospace engineering, any type of, your medicines, because they make these things. But what does the Most High say? Says, behold, I have created this smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. The guy Oppenheimer, when he created the nuclear, he was integral in creating the first atomic bombs. When he created it, he quoted something for, it's an ancient Indian text. I can't think of the name of it, but there was a quote saying, I have become the destroyer of worlds. And that's what he quoted when he created it. He said, now I have become the destroyer of worlds. Let me read that again, in case it's not sinking in your head. This is the Most High. Behold, I have created the smith that bloweth the coals in the fire, and that bringeth forth an instrument for his work. And I have created the waster to destroy. And this is also why it says in verse 17, no weapon formed against me, Salakia, no weapon formed against thee shall prosper. This is the elect. Because those nuclear bombs are going to drop. They ain't created for nothing. But these weapons aren't going to affect the elect. Why? Because the Most High created it. It ain't just those. It's any type of weapon that's created, which is the common day sword, modern day sword. No weapon that is formed against thee shall prosper, and every tongue that shall rise against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of Yahweh, and their righteousness is of me, saith Yahweh. So our righteousness is of Yahweh through faith. Our faith will be counted as righteousness in these days. Point being, though, the Most High creates. He is the mastermind behind all things. They create these weapons. They believe with their prudence and their great wisdom they've accomplished this. But it's the Most High who did it, because it was his will. Let's go to Proverbs 16. Proverbs 16. This is Proverbs chapter 16, verse 4. Yahweh hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. Let me read that again. Yahweh hath made all things for himself, yea, even the wicked for the day of evil. The Most High created all this. He set them up for it. He gave them the technology. He gave them the wisdom to understand atoms in such a way where they can create a weapon this destructive, because he's going to have them use it on themselves. He gave Esau the blessing of the sword, but it was a snare, because the scriptures tell you, he that live by the sword should die by the sword. Actually, go to back to Revelations 13. Revelations 13. And let's go to 9 and 10. Salakia. Revelations chapter 13 verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. You see where our patience is, what we're waiting for? You see what our faith is, what we're hoping for, what we're believing is going to happen? What are we believing and hoping is going to happen? That those who led us into captivity are going into captivity, because they have us in captivity to this day. And he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. The man that's destroying the whole earth, and even beyond the whole earth, just how they've killed us. The Northern Kingdom, the so-called Native Americans, Judah, slaves, how they continue to kill us in the streets today, and we don't get no justice. The guy, Ahmaud Arbery, a year later, those people have been found guilty. And that ain't even no damn justice. He dead. And they would have got away if somebody would have videotaped it. That ain't justice. But we're waiting on Yahweh to come back to deliver us from all this and to recompense them. The Most High said, seeing it is a righteous thing for me to recompense them that give you tribulation. That's what the Most High said. He's going to recompense them. So this is what? Our patience and our hope. And this is the faith of the saints. And how are they going to be killed by the sword? He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. That's because that sword is going to fall upon them. Let's go to back to Jeremiah 50 and 34. This is Jeremiah chapter 50 verse 30. We'll start at 33 here. Thus saith Yahweh hosts, Salaka. Thus saith Yahweh of hosts, and host just means armies. Yahweh of the armies. The children of Israel and the children of Judah were oppressed together, and all that took them captives held them fast. They refused to let them go. Now the children of Israel, that's the northern kingdom. The children of Judah, the southern kingdom, they were never oppressed together except here in Babylon the Great. You Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans. The northern kingdom was taken away captive by the Assyrians in 722 BCE. BCE means before the common era. So 722 BCE, that's when the northern kingdom was taken away by the Assyrians. And then in 586 BCE, that's when the southern kingdom was taken away by the Babylonians. They were never oppressed together. They've only been oppressed together here. Anyway, continuing. Their Redeemer is strong. Yahweh of hosts is his name. He shall thoroughly plead their cause. Now he's going to plead our cause, that he may give rest unto the land and disquiet the inhabitants of Babylon. Here's the point. A sword is upon the Chaldeans, said Yahweh, and upon the inhabitants of Babylon, and upon her princes, and upon her wise men. And the Chaldeans were just the wise men, pretty much the sorcerers and warlocks and soothsayers of Babylon, which they have now. They still have now. Verse 36. A sword is upon the liars, and they shall die. A sword is upon her mighty man, and they shall be dismayed. A sword is upon their houses. Salakia. A sword is upon their horses. And their horses just represent transportation. Your airplanes, your tanks, anything. Missile guidance systems. And upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people. They say that America's a great melting pot. A sword is upon their horses, and upon their chariots, and upon all the mingled people that are in the midst of her. And they shall become as women. A sword is upon her treasures, and they shall be robbed. A drought is upon her waters, and they shall be dried up. For it is the land of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. And that's Babylon the Great. Graven images. Getting ready to celebrate Christmas with the Christmas trees. Among everything, it's Grammy shows with the Grammy Award. That shit go back to the ancient Egyptian figurines. All the symbolism and music, all the little hidden agendas in the TV shows and shit. It's all idolatry. It's all witchcraft. It's all graven images. Pyramid on the dollar bill, the obelisk. That's what? The Washington Monument. This is the place of graven images, and they are mad upon their idols. Alright. Let's go back to the video because it was something else I wanted to highlight at 3:55. And he was talking about peace. 3:55.
Eating ice cream cone. U.S. leaders have a theory of the case. Military dominance, they say, is supposed to achieve peace through strength. This theory guided American leaders in the 1990s after the Soviet Union fell, leaving the United States with undisputed power. During the Cold War, the United States built an apparatus of military alliances and bases to contain Soviet communism. Once the Soviet enemy had collapsed, America had an opportunity to scale back its military.
What did it say? They were supposed to achieve peace by force. So I just want to get a quick one. Hold on. That First Thessalonians. This is First Thessalonians chapter 5 verse 2. Let's start at verse 2. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. They're not going to have peace, but that's really alluding to, when they think they have everything in order, when they think they're really close to, their agenda, because they're going to tell the people, you'll be safe this way, you'll be safe that way. And when people start to feel safe, that's when that sudden destruction going to come. It wasn't much on that. I just wanted to highlight that. Just something I saw in the video. Let's continue though. It was something else in here I wanted to highlight. Go back to 4:14.
Power. During the Cold War, the United States built an apparatus of military alliances and bases to contain Soviet communism. Once the Soviet enemy had collapsed, America had an opportunity to scale back its military footprint, invest the gains at home, and let other countries manage their own affairs.
So I wanted to read another article. So basically what we're saying is after the Cold War, America had a chance, to invest, their gains at home. So I looked up an article. I'm not sure if I read the article in lieu of this, or I had already had the article saved, but it brought to mind this article and I got it here, so let's get it. It says 3% of U.S. military spending could end starvation on Earth. That's one of the points he was highlighting. You know, America could have focused more on, one, stop killing us, stop focusing so much money on trying to destroy us and keep us from knowing who we are, but they can't, because the Most High programmed in that way. Stop engaging, stop starting all these wars. And because at the end of the day, if the elite wanted to, you know, fix this world, they could. They have the money, they have the resources. They don't want to. World hunger could be ended. You know, pollution could be taken care of. Poverty could be ended. Sickness could be ended. You don't think they know how to heal everything? These people know how to break fucking atoms. Find out what an atom is, first of all. Telescopes that can see deep into space. Nanotechnology. You don't think they got the herbs, the understanding of the herbs on how to heal people from cancer, other diseases? If they wanted to heal this earth, they could. But somebody got to play the part of the wicked. And it's them. But they could end world hunger. And this is more so, and just think about it. If it's saying the U.S. could do it, and it's just saying 3% of what the U.S. spends in its military would be able to end starvation. So think about the wicked elite. This ain't long, so we'll read it. In 2008, the United Nations said that 30 billion per year could end hunger on Earth, as reported in the New York Times and Los Angeles Times and many other outlets. The Food and Agriculture Organization has not updated that figure since 2008 and has recently told us that such figures do not require much changing. Yeah, because that's a lot of damn money. In a separate report most recently published in 2015, the same organization provides a figure of 265 billion as the cost per year for 15 years to permanently eliminate extreme poverty, which would eliminate starvation and malnutrition. A broader project than just preventing starvation 1 year at a time. And you know, I ain't gonna read the whole thing, but that was the point. I will jump down here though. As of 2019, the annual Pentagon base budget plus war budget plus nuclear weapons in the Department of Energy plus Homeland Security and other military spending totaled well over 1 trillion. 3% of 1 trillion is 30 billion. That 3% of U.S. military spending could end starvation. 1 trillion. That's more than the next 11 countries combined. The next 11. This also shows you who the hammer of the earth is. So 3% of U.S. military spending could end starvation on Earth. 22% of 1.2 trillion equals 265 billion. So 22% of U.S. military spending for 15 years could permanently end extreme poverty globally. Now, why are they putting it all on America? America is supposed to be the free leader. Is supposed to be the leader of the free world. That's the phrase it has. It's supposed to be this image of democracy and Christian values and helping the world, but it's nothing of the sort. That's the image that they've given us. That's the lie they've told. We've all grown up thinking, oh, these people, you know, good people, you know, they're the image of what's right. No, this is the wicked. And again, every day this man is getting revealed, whether it's war, whether it's some nefarious shit they're doing with the water or drugs, some type of scandal that's coming out. This man is being revealed every single day, and we're gonna keep revealing them. It's all through the Spirit of the Most High. All praise Yahweh Hashem, Yahushua Hashem Rakakwadash. Alright, so I just wanted to read that article. Let's go back to the video. I think it was like one more point I wanted to bring out. Where we at? We'll let this play out.
But instead of pulling back, planners in the Pentagon vowed to maintain a predominant military position, so great as to prevent any potential rival from even aspiring to a larger role in their own regions. No one would dare to take their own initiative, not even U.S. allies, who would stay subordinate to the United States.
And that's the last point in the video I wanted to point out. Because that is how America is going to be destroyed, by its allies, with Russia and its allies. And you notice it said these allies are subordinate to America, and that's in the scriptures. Let's go to Daniel chapter 7. Salakia. This is Daniel chapter 7. We're going to start at verse 7. Alright, so Daniel chapter 7, verse 7. This is Daniel explaining the dream, explaining this dream to Nebuchadnezzar. After this, I saw in the night visions, and behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly. It had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces and stamped the residue with the feet of it. And it was diverse from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. This is the ancient Roman Empire that's being described right here. Now, you can go to any source, any Christian source. Everybody should know this. This isn't hard. Verse 8. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of man, and a mouth speaking great things. That little horn is America. It came out of the other horns, and all these horns were on the dragon. They all came out of the Roman Empire. They're all part of it. And this one horn plucked up 3 horns. What 3 horns did it pluck up? This little horn is America, and those other 3 horns represent Great Britain. This when you had the British-American War. It represents France. You had the French-American War, and it represents Spain because you had the Spanish-American War. Those countries occupied this land that they called America before America came about. That's why I made the point that America came from these Europeans. America wasn't a separate country that sailed over here as Americans and then called this place America. That's why in America you got, mainly up north, most of those places have English names. In the south and in the west, in the south you have a lot of French names. And in the west, along the east coast and also along the west, you have a lot of Spanish names. That little horn is America. But that's just to let you know what it's talking about. The point that these other countries are subordinate. Let's jump down to 20. I just had to let you know what's being described right here. So let's jump down to verse 20. And of the 10 horns that were in his head, and of the other which came up, and before whom 3 fell, even of that horn that had eyes and a mouth that spake very great things, whose look was more stout than his fellows. That his stout mean he has more power, more worldly influence, more sway. Why does he have more influence and more sway over the way of the world? They're all in league. That's why the whore is riding the beast back. They're carrying her. They're all part of the beast. But they're carrying America because she got the biggest military, the most powerful military as it stands right now. Because as it stands right now, she is the hammer of the earth. So they're in league with her, but they're subordinate. Like the man just pointed out. Now they're all wicked. Because if it wasn't America at the top, it'd be one of them at the top still doing wickedness. But that's the point. America is more stout than its fellows. But those allies are going to turn on America and destroy her, burn her with fire. Let's go to Revelation 17. I'm getting ready to close out. This is Revelation chapter 17, verse 16. And I've been through this chapter a few times, so I'm not going to go through it. You should already know. And the 10 horns. So this is John the Revelator on the island of Patmos. He had been exiled to the island of Patmos for what? For preaching the word. The other apostles had been put to death. He got banished, exiled to the island of Patmos to be a slave as a what? As a political prisoner. Doing the same thing we're doing right now. Preaching the word, preaching the truth. So he's seeing the same image that Daniel saw back in Daniel. The prophet Daniel just described the image of the dragon, which was the Roman Empire, and this horn coming up. And John is seeing that same Roman Empire in the future. But it's the revised Roman Empire, the one we're living under. He's seeing what we're living under. And he's seeing the end of it. So this is verse 16. And the 10 horns, this is the angel explaining to John the image. Because John saw the image and he wondered after it. So the angel is explaining it to him. Verse 16. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Wow. Verse 17. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of the Most High shall be fulfilled. See, the Most High is making all of these things happen. We're just telling you what's going to happen. With those allies that America has, they're going to turn on her. Because they're tired of wearing her, carrying her. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore. Where's the whore in relation to the beast? You might as well jump back up. I ain't going to read the whole thing though. Verse 4. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was written a name, Mystery Babylon. Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. I should have jumped up to verse 3. So he carried me away in the Salakia. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. So this woman is riding this beast. That's America riding the beast. Let's go to Obadiah. Then we're going to close it out though. So America allies are going to turn on her. So Obadiah 1 and 6. Again, it's Esau. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? Well, first and foremost through the Spirit. He's making Esau bear in these last days. Because we didn't know the damn white man was the devil. We might have heard that shit in the TV movie and laughed about it, but we didn't know this was truly the man of sin that the Bible was talking about. You know why we didn't know that? Because Esau taught us how to understand the Bible according to his lies, to cover up his atrocities. But in these last days, the Most High has poured out His Spirit on His men all around the world, which is a testament to His great power, because none of us woke ourselves up. None of us. We ain't figured this out. That's the Spirit. You know, always got to give double honors, because that it started with the apostles on down, teaching His men. Verse 6 again. How are the things of Esau searched out? How are his hidden things sought up? All the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. There is none understanding in him. See? All those nations that's allies that are confederate, they're gonna turn on America. And they that eat thy bread, all the countries that America gives military aid to, they gonna turn on America. They sending those that missile system to Ukraine. Ukraine gonna turn on America. You know, America's a big defense for Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's gonna turn on America. All the countries, all the men of thy confederacy have brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. Now let's go for the land of Israel too. They gonna be destroyed. They gonna be utterly destroyed, because that place has to be cleansed, has to be purged with fire. Because those people in the land ain't the land, they defiling the land. Scripture told us the land will be trodden down to the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be complete, be fulfilled. And this is the time that we're in right now. We're in the time of the fulfilling of the Gentiles. Alright, I'm going to leave it there. Anyway, I just wanted to highlight who the hammer of the earth is. That video that man did was right on point. If you can't see who America is, but it don't end there. It don't just end with America. You know, it's these other nations too. But anyway, I'm going to say, I hope the lesson was edifying. You know, I hope the lesson was edifying. I'm going to say, all praise Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rokak Wadash. And until next time, Shalom.